Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and we are here to answer the call. I was tagged by my buddy Hellhound from the HorrorMetal channel to name my top 5 favorite horror movie directors of all time. Now, this list was pretty easy for me, and some of these probably aren't going to be much of a shock to you guys, but nevertheless, here we go. Now, Hellhound made the choice not to include any Italian horror movie directors on his list. Now, I am going to include one, and that is Lucio Fulci, the man who made this masterpiece right here, The Beyond. He also made one of the greatest zombie horror films of all time, Zombie. We are going to eat you. And of course, this gore-soaked classic, City of the Living Dead. And then, of course, House by the Cemetery, which mixes the slasher film with the zombie film. Alright, next up, guys, in at number 4 is going to be Tobe Hooper, who directed this vampire classic, one of my favorite vampire films of all time, Salem's Lot. He also made what I consider to be one of the most underrated horror sequels of all time, and that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. And obviously this is a no-brainer. The masterpiece known as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. An absolute 5-star classic. I can't say enough about it. It's just absolutely brilliant. Alright, next up, guys, is going to be the legend known as George A. Romero, who directed this string of zombie classics, Day of the Dead, and what I consider to be the greatest zombie film of all time, Dawn of the Dead. And it all started right here, folks, with Night of the Living Dead, the film that created the modern zombie film as we know it today. I have never gone a single Halloween without watching that film. Alright, guys, in at number 2 is going to be the horror master, Wes Craven. I really only recently saw this film for the first time about a year ago, and that is The Hills Have Eyes. And I absolutely love it. And of course, he made this grisly, gruesome masterpiece, Last House on the Left. And of course, the greatest, and that is A Nightmare on Elm Street. Introducing the world to the boogeyman known as Freddy Krueger. The most popular horror villain of all time, I would say. And then he came back in the 90s with Scream, which brought back to life the slasher genre, which was all but dead at that time. And next up, I wonder who could it be? Who could it be at number 1? Of course, it's going to be John Carpenter, who made this classic, The Fog. Of course, what I considered one of the greatest remakes of all time, The Thing. Of course, Escape from New York, starring Kurt Russell in the legendary role of Snake Plissken. And of course, what I consider to be the greatest horror movie ever made, and that is the classic from 1978, John Carpenter's Halloween. Introducing the world to the boogeyman, the shape known as Michael Myers. Alright, guys, that's it. That's my picks for the top 5 favorite horror film directors of all time. And thanks, Hellhound, for tagging me. And now I'm going to tag some people. I'm going to tag ANDREWBALLINA, Movie Review Time, Random Horror, Bushman Blu, Michael Myers 101, The Last Shoegazer, Last Venom 76, and Rusting Willpower. And that's it, guys. Thanks for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.